I'm standing outside an apartment building in Memphis, and the rain is coming down so hard I can barely see through my truck windshield, but I can see enough. Through that ground floor window, lit up like a stage, I can see my wife of 45 years in another man's arms. Grace is laughing. Not the polite laugh she uses at church socials or the tired laugh she gives me when I tell the same old stories. This is different. This is the laugh from when we were young, when everything was new and possible. Her head is tilted back, and this man, gray hair, glasses, someone I've never seen in my life, he's looking at her like she hung the moon. Then he kisses her forehead, gentle and familiar, and she closes her eyes and leans into him like she's done it 1,000 times before, like it's the most natural thing in the world. My hands are shaking on the steering wheel. I'm 74 years old, and I'm shaking like a boy. 3 months ago, none of this made sense. It was December, right before Christmas, and Grace told me she needed to visit her cousin Patricia in Memphis. Patricia was sick, she said. Needed help around the house. Grace had always been like that, always. The first one to help someone in need. That's who she was. That's who I thought she was. I'll just be gone a couple days, she'd said, kissing my cheek as she loaded her overnight bag into her car. Patricia really needs me right now. I didn't question it. Why would I? This was Grace. My Grace. The woman who taught third grade for 30 years. The woman who made peach cobbler for every church potluck. The woman who kept the books for Dixon Metalworks while raising our 2 kids. The woman who sat beside me every Sunday morning in the same pew we'd sat in for 4 decades. But then she went to Memphis again in January, and twice in February. And I started noticing things. She bought new perfume, expensive stuff, not the drugstore kind she'd worn for years. She changed her hair, started wearing it down instead of in that practical bun. She was on her phone all the time, texting, smiling at the screen, then looking up guilty when she noticed me watching. One night in late February, I woke up at 2 in the morning and she wasn't in bed. I found her in the kitchen, phone pressed to her ear, voice low and soft. When she saw me, she jumped like I'd caught her stealing. Just Patricia, she'd said quickly. Couldn't sleep, poor thing. But I heard her say a name before she hung up. Not Patricia. Arthur. I told myself I was being paranoid. 45 years of marriage. And suddenly I'm suspicious? Like some jealous teenager? Grace had never given me reason to doubt her. Never. Not once in all those years. Then I found the receipt. It was in her coat pocket when I was taking it to the dry cleaners. A restaurant receipt from Memphis. Some fancy Italian place. Dated February 14th, Valentine's Day. The day Grace told me she was at Patricia's bedside because Patricia had taken a bad turn. My chest got tight. I sat down at our kitchen table, the same table where we'd eaten breakfast together for 30 years, and I stared at that receipt until the numbers blurred. I called Patricia's number. My hands were sweating as it rang. Eli, Patricia answered, cheerful as anything. What a nice surprise. Just checking on you, I said, my voice sounding strange in my own ears. Grace said, you've been having a rough time. Silence. Then, rough time? Eli, I don't know what you mean. I'm healthy as a horse. Haven't seen Grace since Thanksgiving, actually. Is everything okay? I don't remember what I said to get off that phone call. So I planned this. Told Grace I had to go to Memphis myself. Overnight trip to meet with a metal supplier. She didn't even blink. Just kissed me goodbye this morning and said she'd miss me. 3 hours later, I followed her car out of Willow Creek, staying far enough back that she wouldn't notice. Watched her drive straight to this apartment building in Cooper Young. Watched her park like she'd done it 100 times before. Watched her walk up to apartment 4B and pull out her own key. Her own key. She let herself in without knocking. Now I'm sitting here in the rain, watching through that window, and I can see everything. Photos on the walls, Grace and this man at restaurants, at parks. A life I know nothing about. She's wearing clothes I've never seen. Her hair is different. Even the way she moves is different. This isn't an affair. This is something worse. This is a whole other life. June 1975. Willow Creek, Mississippi. I'm 29 years old, covered in metal shavings and sweat, working in Mr. Terrence Powell's fabrication shop. Mr. Powell is teaching me a tricky corner weld on a decorative gate. His hands are steady despite his age, guiding mine with patience I don't deserve. I've messed up this same weld 3 times today. "Slow down, Eli," he says in that calm voice of his. "Good work can't be rushed. You're building something that'll outlast both of us." I don't know it yet, but he's teaching me more than metalwork. He's teaching me about life, about doing things right even when nobody's watching, about integrity being more important than speed. Mr. Powell lost his wife 2 years back. No children. The shop is his whole world now, and somehow he's decided I'm worth investing in. I've been his apprentice for 3 years, and I can't imagine doing anything else with my life. I'm content with my simple routine. Work, church on Sunday, fishing on Saturday mornings. I've got a small rental house and a truck that runs most days. I'm not looking for anything more. Then Grace Thompson arrives in Willow Creek. It's the 4th of July church picnic, and I'm manning the grill because nobody else wanted to stand in the heat. I'm flipping burgers when this woman walks up with a pitcher of lemonade and a smile that makes me forget my own name. "You look like you could use this," she says, pouring me a glass. Grace has warm brown eyes and laugh lines that suggest she uses them often. She's wearing a yellow sundress with little flowers on it. Her hair is pulled back in a ponytail, and there's something about her that makes the whole picnic seem brighter. "I'm Grace," she says. "Just started teaching 3rd grade at the elementary school. Eli Dixon. I manage. I weld things." She laughs at that. Not mean, just delighted. "Well, Eli Dixon who welds things. Nice to meet you." We talk for 20 minutes while I burn half the burgers. She's from Memphis, wanted to teach in a smaller town. Loves Willow Creek already. She asks about my work, and I find myself telling her about Mr. Powell, about learning the craft, about wanting to open my own shop someday. She listens, like what I'm saying actually matters. After that picnic, I find excuses to run into her. Church on Sunday, she's there in the 3rd pew. The grocery store, she's comparing prices on canned goods. The library, she's checking out books for her classroom. By August, I'm working up the courage to ask her to dinner. Mr. Powell notices me distracted at work, hammering the same piece of metal for 10 minutes without shaping it. "Boy, just ask her out before you hurt yourself," he says, shaking his head. So I do. We go to the only nice restaurant in town, a little Italian place with red checkered tablecloths. Grace tells me about her 3rd graders, how one boy insisted the moon was made of cheese and wrote a whole report about it. I tell her about accidentally welding my sleeve to a fence post last week. We laugh until our sides hurt. We marry in April 1976. Mr. Powell stands as my best man, tears streaming down his weathered face. "You found yourself a good woman, Eli," he whispers before I walk down the aisle. "Hold on to her." I promise I will. The early years are everything I dreamed of. Grace decorates our small house with curtains she sews herself. I work long hours at the shop, saving every penny I can. In 1977, Jamal is born 7 pounds 8 ounces of screaming baby boy. I hold him in the hospital and promise him I'll build him a good life. Keisha comes in 1980. She's tiny and fierce from day one. Grace juggles teaching and raising 2 kids like it's easy, though I know it's not. She keeps books for the business too, balancing accounts at the kitchen table after the kids are asleep. We buy our forever home in 1985. 3 bedrooms, big front porch, enough yard for the kids to play, Grace plants a garden. I build a swing set. This is everything I wanted. When Mr. Powell dies in 1992, I'm devastated. Grace holds me while I cry like a child. He taught you well, she says. Now you pass it on. So I do. I take on apprentices. I build Dixon Metalworks into something Mr. Powell would be proud of. Grace is beside me through all of it, the lean years, the good years, the years that blur together in the best way. Jamal takes over the business in 2008. My boy is a natural, better than I ever was. Keisha becomes a nurse, marries a good man, gives us 3 grandchildren who fill our house with noise and joy. Grace and I settle into comfortable rhythms. Morning coffee on the porch, Friday fish dinners, anniversary trips to Gulf Shores every October, quiet evenings where we don't need to talk because we know each other so completely. Or so I think. When Grace retires from teaching in 2015, she seems restless. Starts taking trips to Memphis, old teaching friends, she says. I trust her completely. Why wouldn't I? By 2017, the Memphis trips become monthly. By 2019, they're twice a week. I never question it. Not once. This is Grace. My Grace. The foundation of my entire adult life. I never imagined she could be someone else entirely. I didn't knock on that door. I didn't storm in and demand answers. I got back in my truck, drove to a Waffle House off I-40, and sat in a corner booth until midnight, staring at cold coffee. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. The next morning, I did something I never thought I'd do. I hired a private investigator, Curtis Webb, retired police officer from Jackson. Met him in a Cracker Barrel parking lot, like we were in some bad movie. I need to know everything, I told him. How long? How deep? All of it. Curtis was a big man with kind eyes. He didn't ask unnecessary questions, just nodded and took the photos I'd printed from my phone. Grace and that man through the window. 2 weeks. That's how long it took Curtis to destroy what was left of my world. I was in my workshop at Dixon Metalworks when he called. Mr. Dixon, I've got the report. You want to meet somewhere, or should I come to you? Just tell me, I said. I'm sitting down. His name is Arthur Blackwood, 69 years old, retired insurance broker. Widower, lost his wife to cancer in 2015. Lives in that Memphis apartment I'd seen. Volunteers at the cultural center downtown. And he's been with my wife for nearly 4 years. 4 years. There's more, Curtis said, and I could hear the reluctance in his voice. Mr. Dixon, your wife. She told him she was a widow. Said her name was Grace Miller. Told him her husband died in 2014. The wrench I was holding clattered to the concrete floor. Curtis kept talking, his words coming through the phone like punches. Grace had rented that apartment under the name Grace Miller in July 2016. She had a separate bank account he'd traced deposits, small amounts skimmed from household expenses over years, adding up to thousands. She had Memphis friends who knew her only as Arthur's girlfriend, the brave widow rebuilding her life. She's been celebrating holidays with his family, Curtis said. Birthday parties for his grandkids. His daughter thinks your wife is going to be her stepmother. I sat down on my workshop stool before my legs gave out. Curtis sent the full report by email. I read it that night in my workshop, the only place Grace never came, surrounded by 40 years of metalwork tools and projects. The details were surgical in their precision. Grace would tell me she was visiting cousin Patricia or meeting old teaching friends. Instead, she'd drive to Memphis and slip into her other life. She'd stay 2 or 3 days at a time. She kept clothes there, toiletries, everything. She cooked dinners with Arthur, watched television on his couch, attended his grandson's baseball games. There were photos. Curtis had been thorough. Grace and Arthur at a restaurant, holding hands across the table. Grace and Arthur at the botanical gardens, his arm around her waist. Grace and Arthur grocery shopping. laughing over a shared joke. In every photo, she looked happy, younger, like the woman I'd married 50 years ago. The worst one was dated October 2019, Gulf Shores, Alabama. Grace and Arthur on the beach, sunset behind them, his arms wrapped around her from behind, her head tilted back against his chest, both of them smiling at the camera. Gulf Shores, where Grace and I had honeymooned in 1976. She'd told me she was at a teaching conference in Atlanta that week. I'd believed her. Of course I'd believed her. Curtis's report included bank statements showing Grace had paid for that trip. She'd spent our money we'd saved together, money from 45 years of my welding work, and her teaching salary to take another man to our honeymoon beach. There was more. Arthur had proposed to her in February. Curtis had a copy of the credit card receipt from the jewelry store where Arthur bought the ring. Grace told him she needed more time to think about it. She needed time because she already had a husband. Arthur didn't know. That was clear from Curtis's investigation. Arthur Blackwood thought he'd found love again after losing his wife. He thought Grace Miller was a widow, lonely like him, brave enough to risk her heart again. He had no idea he was the other man in someone's marriage. I read that report 3 times that night. Then I read it again the next morning. I was looking for something, some explanation that would make this make sense, some detail that would prove Curtis got it wrong. But there was nothing. Just page after page of evidence that the woman I'd loved for 45 years had built an entire second existence. That she'd been living 2 lives, telling 2 sets of lies, being 2 different people. The Grace I knew taught Sunday school and made peach cobbler and kept our family together. Grace Miller went on beach vacations and met a man's family and accepted a marriage proposal. And they were the same person. I sat in my workshop until dawn, holding those papers. And finally, I knew what I had to do. I had to make both of her worlds collide. April 2nd, 2020. I'll remember that date until the day I die. I told Grace I had a metalworking conference in Birmingham. 3 days, I said. She kissed me goodbye at the door, told me to drive safe, call when I got there. Same as always. Like nothing was wrong. But I didn't go to Birmingham. I went to Jamal's house and told my son everything. My boy didn't say a word while I talked. Just sat there at his kitchen table, his face getting harder and harder. When I finished, he looked at me with eyes full of pain and said, "I'm coming with you, Dad." We drove to Memphis together that afternoon. Didn't talk much. What was there to say? Jamal's hands were white-knuckled on the steering wheel the whole way. Curtis had confirmed they'd both be home at 6. We got there at 5:50 and sat in the truck, watching that apartment window. Right on schedule, Grace's car pulled into the parking lot. At 5:55, "That's Mom's car," Jamal said. Like he still couldn't believe it. Like maybe this was all some terrible mistake. We watched her get out, carrying grocery bags. She was wearing a yellow dress I'd never seen before. Her hair was down, curled the way she used to wear it when we were dating. She walked to apartment 4B like she owned the place. Because she did, in a way. She'd made it hers. "Let's go," I said. My legs felt like concrete walking up to that door. Jamal was right behind me, his breathing loud in the quiet hallway. I raised my hand and knocked. The man who opened the door was the same one from the window that rainy night, Arthur Blackwood. Up close, he looked kind, friendly, confused to see 2 strangers on his doorstep. "Can I help you?" he asked. Then Grace appeared behind him, drying her hands on a kitchen towel, and every bit of color drained from her face. "Hello, Grace," I said. My voice came out steady, which surprised me. Or should I say Grace Miller? Arthur looked from me to Grace and back again. "Grace? Who are these people?" Grace's mouth opened, but nothing came out. She looked like she might faint. "I'm her husband," I said. "Elijah Dixon." We've been married 45 years, and this is our son, Jamal. I watched Arthur's face change. Confusion to disbelief to dawning horror. What? Arthur took a step back. No, no, Grace is a widow. Her husband died in Grace. What's he talking about? Grace finally found her voice. Arthur, I can explain. It's not what you think. Not what I think? Arthur's voice cracked. Grace, are you married? Yes. But Jamal made a sound like he'd been punched. Hearing his mother admit it out loud broke something in him. How could you do this to Dad? To us? Grace started crying. I never meant to hurt anyone. You have to understand, I felt invisible. After I retired, I felt like I disappeared. And then I met Arthur and he made me feel seen again. So you lied to both of us? Arthur's hands were shaking. For 4 years? 4 years, Grace? I pulled out the folder Curtis had given me. Marriage certificate, family photos, the investigation report. I handed it all to Arthur with steady hands. Here's proof of everything. We married April 1976. 2 children, 3 grandchildren, same house, in Willow Creek for 30 years. Arthur took the papers like they might burn him. He looked through them, his face crumbling with each page. When he got to a photo of Grace and me at Keisha's wedding, him walking our daughter down the aisle together, he made a choking sound. I bought you a ring, he whispered to Grace. I introduced you to my daughter. My grandchildren call you Grandma Grace. Arthur, please, did you ever love me? Or was I just some game to you? No, I loved you. I love you. I couldn't give up either life. I couldn't choose. Mom, Jamal's voice was cold. Stop talking. Grace turned to me, tears streaming down her face. Eli, please, let me explain. We can work through this. Work through this? I said quietly. Grace, you've been living a double life for 4 years. You took that man to Gulf Shores, our honeymoon spot. You spent our savings on trips with him. You let his family believe you were going to marry him while you were sleeping in our bed. I know it looks bad, but it doesn't look bad, Grace. It is bad. Arthur slumped into a chair, still holding those papers. He looked destroyed. I felt sorry for him, which was strange. We'd both been fooled by the same woman. You lied to both of us, I told Grace. You're not the person I thought you were. Maybe you never were. Jamal touched my shoulder. Dad, let's go. I looked at Arthur one more time. You're a victim here too. She lied to you, same as me. Then I turned to Grace. Don't come home tonight. I'll let you know when. We left her standing there, crying in that apartment that I'd never known existed. September 2020. 5 months after my world ended. I'm going through the motions. Wake up. Coffee. Drive to Dixon Metalworks. Weld something. Drive home. Frozen dinner. Sleep. Repeat. Jamal watches me with worried eyes when I come into the shop. Keisha calls every day, her voice careful, like I might break. My grandkids ask why Grandma doesn't come to Sunday dinner anymore, and nobody knows what to tell them. The divorce was finalized in August. 45 years dissolved in a courtroom in under an hour. Grace got her half of the savings. I kept the house. She moved to Memphis permanently, though not back to Arthur. He wanted nothing to do with her after everything came out. Willow Creek turned on her fast. Small towns don't forget. The woman who taught their children to read, who organized bake sales and volunteered at the library, gone. Now she's just the woman who lived a lie. People cross the street when they see her on her rare visits back. The church ladies, who used to be her friends, won't return her calls. I should feel satisfied. I don't. I just feel empty. Pastor Vernon Hughes corners me after service one Sunday in late September. Eli, I need you to come by my office Tuesday evening. There are some men I want you to meet. I almost say no. But Pastor Vernon has known me since I was young, so I go. There are 3 other men there. Different ages, different stories, but all the same wound. Their wives cheated. Their marriages ended. They survived. We meet every Tuesday for 2 months. We don't talk about forgiveness or moving on, not at first. We just talk about the anger, the shame, the feeling that we somehow failed, the confusion of losing someone we thought we knew. One man, Calvin, tells me something that sticks. The person you loved was real. The life you had was real. But so was the betrayal. Both things are true. You don't have to choose one or the other. I think about that a lot. October brings the first morning I wake up without that crushing weight on my chest. It's small, barely noticeable, but it's there. A lightness, just for a moment. November, my grandson Tommy asks if I'll teach him metalworking. He's 10, all eager eyes and questions. I set him up with safety gear and basic tools, and for 3 hours I don't think about Grace once. I'm just Grandpa Eli, teaching my grandson the craft Mr. Powell taught me 50 years ago. Tommy burns himself on a practice weld, nothing serious, and I show him my own scars. Every welder's got these. I tell him, they're proof you're learning, proof you're trying. He looks up at me with this serious expression. Like how you're learning to be okay again after Grandma left? Kids see too much. Yeah, buddy, I say. Exactly like that. December, I start a new project. Not for a customer, for me. I take scrap metal from the shop pieces that were supposed to be thrown away, and I start building a bird, wings spread, rising from twisted, broken metal beneath it. It takes me 3 weeks. I work on it late at night, when the shop is empty. Every hammer strike, every weld, I'm putting something into it. The pain, the anger, but also the healing. The choice to keep going. Jamal sees it one morning, stands there staring for a full minute. Dad, that's incredible. Just something I needed to make, I tell him. Word gets around. The mayor sees it and asks if he can commission it for the town square. Symbol of Willow Creek's resilience, he says. Rising from hard times. I agree. The day they install it, half the town shows up. People shake my hand, tell me how beautiful it is, how inspiring. I see Grace in the back of the crowd, watching from a distance. She looks smaller somehow, alone. Our eyes meet for a second. I nod. She nods back. Then she leaves. I hear about her sometimes. She lives in a small apartment in Memphis. Keisha still won't talk to her. Jamal sends legal documents when necessary. Nothing more. She lost both her lives, the one in Willow Creek and the one with Arthur. I don't take pleasure in it, but I don't feel guilty either. Christmas 2024. I'm at Jamal's house, surrounded by my children and grandchildren. Tommy shows everyone the small metal sculpture he made, a star, slightly crooked but sturdy. Grandpa Eli taught me, he announces proudly. I'm 74 years old. I have white hair and deeper lines around my eyes and a scar across my heart that will never completely fade. But I also have this. My family gathered close. My grandson learning metalwork the way I did. My life rebuilt piece by careful piece. That night, driving home, I think about everything I've learned. That people can deceive you in ways you never imagined. That betrayal reveals who someone really is and who you really are. That starting over at any age takes courage, but it's always possible if you're willing to do the work. Mr. Powell used to tell me that good metalwork requires heat, pressure, and patience. Turns out, the same is true for healing. The truth hurt worse than anything I'd ever felt, but it was also the only foundation solid enough to rebuild on. And rebuilding, no matter how painful, was worth it. Because I was worth it.